I want to talk about authentication and authorization, which is a pretty boring topic, especially when it hits you at the wrong time. And it always hits you at the wrong time, right? And what's now is a little bit special, and I hope that no one leaves now. This is a very basic session, basic knowledge. Compared to what I did yesterday with Bartek and compared to all the other super sophisticated topics that I have seen here, this is really basic stuff. But I would propose a bet. If you liked the session, but you knew it all, don't push the button. But if I show you one thing that you didn't know, and you regard this as a very important, you might want to push the button. So this is not very, it's not a very sophisticated content, but this is what gets you in real life. So, my name is Thorsten Butz. I'm an independent PowerShellian. Is that a good word? And I really like to talk to you, and it's amazing how many people are here. So thank you again. But the best thing, I do only have demos, so this is my last slide. Thank you. So, problem, you know what I mean. Can press the thumbs that everything works as it should. Let's talk about real-life problems. I heard a lot about GR and all that super special interest stuff. But when it comes to basic things that are in Windows since 10 years or more, people often do not know how to handle it properly. So for example, I could talk for hours about user account control. And of course, anyone thinks that he or she knows what it's all about. But if you take a close look, you will find new things, amazing things that you didn't knew. And again, in real life, that might be a problem. So what we all know is that if I simply start something like this, and I get prompted, you know that I'm an administrator, because this is the reason why I get the prompt for consent. But more or less, if I wouldn't do it, then I would not be a real administrator, so not so really real. So let's have a look at that. So I created a user for this, a demo. The name is local admin, so you know what it is. And this local admin is very limited in rights. So if I try to do something like for example, hello world, stuff like that, and I want to do this in a text file, it's a problem. So that might be a problem, because I'm a local admin, I was prompted, okay, and if I try this now, it works. But if I would have skipped that step, no, wait a second, just like this, it wouldn't work. You know that all. Of course you know. But just for the record, see if I'm right. So, one more try. So, access to the path denied, of course. What you might or might not know is that there's a certain difference if you use the built-in administrator, the 500, the root account, or if you use any other user. And I want to show you some problems that you can run to if you don't think about these things. So let's get a little bit more sophisticated. I show you some scripts that I brought here. My first. So let's open that and let's start here. So the first thing that I already did, but just wait a second. I already created a local user. Where's my mouse? There. So I don't need, there's no need to do that again. And he's a member of the administrators group, you all know that. So the next important thing is that I have to check my network connection profile. Because you all know that there are certain areas where you run into trouble when you deal with a public profile, because firewall changes and a lot of other elements. So what I want to find out here is that, do I have a domain authenticated profile, or am I private or am I public? I'm private because this is a workgroup computer. So there's no need to run line 13 again. And just let's find out if there is a folder, and let's share this folder. So that's it. So what you do not know is that I have a partner computer. It's exactly the same, but on the other side, I already run that. So let's find out if that works. But before we do that, I have one more step in preparation. What really annoys me is that I can't see here that I'm in this elevated mode. So I guess the best thing is to create a profile so that I can see that. So what I do now is that I simply do this here in the lab for the all profiles. And I put some things in, and later on I will add a little bit to that to make it easier to handle with the stuff. So that's my basic setup. That's pretty boring, you know that all. So let's try that again. What I described in my intro was you're a user, but user account control is capable of treating you like a standard user, more or less. But it's sometimes a little bit easy, it's not so easy to see that, because just from the name you don't get it. What you have to find out is that you're really a member of the administrators group. So let's double check that. If I do that here, start the regular PowerShell. And whoops. So, and you see here, be careful. You have to take care that you are a member of the administrators, that's true. But this group is only used for deny. It would be easier if from the token perspective, the administrators group would be completely removed. But that's not the fact, because in a very unlikely event, there could be some negative permissions that wouldn't apply if I completely remove the group. So this is the reason why Windows says, yes, I'm an administrator because I'm a member of the group of local administrators, but you won't get any rights for that in this shell. That's completely different in my elevated shell. The next thing is that's my preferred way because it's not so much typing. If you take a look at the privileges, this way, let's make it a little bit larger. And I still hope that you all know that, but this is a prerequisite what comes next. As you can see here, I do have 5 privileges. And if you're a beginner, you would say, hey, lots of them are disabled. But you, the delegates from the PowerShell conference, do know that this has no direct meaning. It just means that you, in your current process token, you simply do not use this privilege. It's not enlightened. So yeah, it's inactive, but you could push the button and it's enabled. Let's compare that with my elevated prompt. So many more. So that's a pretty easy sign that you're an administrator in a real elevated mod. So now let's come to the things that you might not know. I promised that I will have some elements in my profile. This is such an example. Create a little function, you know that. I'm sure from your scripts, it says I'm an admin. And you can use that to create a nice prompt. So that's it. And in my term, you see that if I'm elevated, I have some red brackets. This is the way that I personally like it. And now let's start. No, just a second. Let's put these nice little functions in my profile. So, just a second. I apologize for the mouse, it's a little bit strange. So let's put that here. So, and from the second that I put this in my profile, in everybody's profile, it should be the way that wherever you start a shell, now you see it's green. It's a bit small. I can enlarge that. So now it's easy to distinguish. So where's the problem? Go back to my script. The problem might be from my perspective, hidden feature of the so-called local account token filter policy. Many people have heard something. Many people struggled with it, but nobody really understands it completely from my perspective. So we want to try to find out what's wrong here. I have a partner computer, as I told you. This is the client 4. And I was just looking if this machine is available. I created a share and just want to find out, yes, this computer is really available. Let's do that from a graphical perspective, just to be sure. There's the machine, that's the depot. Everything is as it should be. So, and now comes the weirdness. If I try to reach $C, it doesn't work. Because this was implemented years ago in, I guess, Windows Server 2012, R2, something like that. It's a long way gone. It's in Windows Server 2016, it's in Windows 10. The problem is that it's pretty easy to try to pass find credentials on the network, or pass the hash attacks and all that stuff. So Microsoft tries to enforce the basic level security and denies, in most cases, access as a local admin in a work group. Because if you think now, I never observed that, I can tell you the likely reason is that you only work in Active Directory. Because there you don't have that problem. This is workgroup only. But we all know we have a bunch of different computers. Most of them might be in an Active Directory, but sometimes you have a workgroup. And now you run into that problem. So let's see if that is only PowerShell or if I can do that here. And now comes, in my eyes, this is super confusing for many people. I swear this user exists, because if it wouldn't exist, I wouldn't have seen depot, right? I swear it exists. We will see that in a few seconds, but I will never get to that machine. Never. Except if I change something. Local account token filter policy can be enabled or disabled. This is simply a registry key. You can do that by group policy. And line 13 proves if there is something in place. And as you can see, it's not because the registry key, this gives me an error, says no, there is nothing. So, okay. Let's do that aside for a second. I do something which is not logic in my eyes. I enable PowerShell remoting. And maybe you get an idea what the problem here is. mind this line. This is, from my perspective, this is pretty hidden in the system. It is not about $. If you would like to do some PowerShell remoting, you would find out that this does not work either, because Windows Remote Management Service does apply to these rules. So you have a real problem to reach out to these machines, because normally you will do that as an administrator. For most reasons you need that, but exactly that is not allowed. So if I would start on a client PowerShell remoting the service, Microsoft is clever enough to say, hey, just a second, wait. We're in a workgroup environment, so we run into trouble. And this is the reason why on workgroup machines, this is enabled by default the second that you enable PowerShell remoting. What I personally think is pretty strange. So let's try $C again. You see that? Oops. Do I not have the user account? Maybe I missed it, so we will double check that again. Just a second. Sorry. What was my fault? I did it on the client. I also have to do that on the other side, of course. So let's switch to the other computer. Just a second. I really have to do this more or less manually because I have no remote technology to come there to the other machine. So let's see what goes. Oh, so this is the machine. So first of all, we will find out if the user exists. Come on. So you see there's a local admin. Obviously, I need to create a new profile. And all I will do now is that I enable PowerShell remoting. Same that I did on the client side. So, of course, I need a full-blown token. Baby, shut up. Come on. This is a little bit small, but you will see if your eyes are pretty good, exactly the same. So I guess we can go back and see if something changed. It's my machine. So yet another try. Here we are. I guess it's for most of the average guys, and I want you that you do not think about your own job role, what you do, think about all your colleagues. I think this is pretty confusing, but because no one sees the relationship between enabling PowerShell remoting and this stuff. But there's a little problem. My machine is now a little bit more vulnerable as it should be. So you get the idea? This is driven by the fact that I have the unlikely event that I'm on a client and I'm on a work group. But think about all the deployment guys and you will think, yeah, there is this situation where I create this. What about servers? We will see that in a second. No, it's not super good, but okay, let's see. What's wrong here? Strange, right? But of course, I forgot something again. I'm in a work group, and as you all know, in a work group, there is no trust between the machines. So one more thing. I should take care of the trusted host. This is such basic knowledge, but I think in real life you forget about that because you're confused by the one thing, then you have the other thing, and try that again. And now we got it complete. So very, very strange. Let's see if I can use invoke command and if I have real admin rights. So yes, everything works as it should be. If time allows, and I will speed it up here a little bit, we will come to the situation, what's in the domain and stuff like that. So just keep patient because you will see there are also hurdles. One more thing, what about the computer, which is a server edition? The main difference is, on the server edition, remoting is enabled by default. So there is no mechanism to look up, is the machine in a work group. It is simply accessible. And this is the reason why local account token filter always applies. So let's see that here. I do switch to a computer which is a server. And very important, this is the unlikely case of a server with a full-blown graphical user interface. And of course, nobody uses that here in the room, except all my customers in real life. So because this is different, if you use Nano Server, if that would still exist, or you use Core, there is no user account control. I will switch now to a machine that's integrated in a domain. And let's see what's interesting here. This is maybe one of the topics that you decided to join me here in this session, because I want to talk about the double hop. And if time allows, I have a little bit more, but I guess you don't want to miss the closing session, so it might be that we stop after this. Open the path. So, the first part was about what I refer to as a hidden functionality. We do hear so often about all the security improvements, but you pay a price. If everything is easy to handle, just as it was in Windows 2000, it can't be secure. If you don't close the car, if you don't use the key, it's very easy to get into the car, but it's the same is true for the thief. And we forget about these things. And in real life, from my perspective, only 10% is really used by the customer. The second thing that really is an issue in real life is if it comes to Active Directory, you don't have a problem with the things that I mentioned before, but you have another problem. Let's see what's up here. I have a super hidden, nobody knows it, super secure password. And the simple reason is that I write it here, I don't want to type it and and get some typos. So let's see if I get all the machines. And let's start like this. So this is the way it should be. I have two servers. One of it is a domain controller, and the other are plain member servers. So let's see if they work. Looks good so far, but maybe one more server is off. Let's see if I should start that either. Yes, start it. Oops, wrong machine. Meanwhile, the machines are booting. Let's first of all explain what is the double hop problem. Actually, it's a feature, because if everything is good in your network, if you use secure Kerberos authentication, if you have an Active Directory domain, no credentials are passed to the remote machine. I don't want to explain Kerberos authentication because the penetration testing guys, Will Schroeder, Jared, and all the others did a very good job explaining this stuff. So if everything is great, you have Kerberos authentication and you have a ticket granting ticket, and all of a sudden everything works as magically without really providing passwords. The problem is that if you don't give the password to a remote machine, then the remote machine is not capable of using this password to a third machine. So this is referred to as the double hop problem. Actually, it's a feature. So let's see what that means. And now the machines are up. And let's see what it means. So first of all, let's have some fun with the double hop. This is the way it should be. And keep in mind what is server 1 and what is server 2 and what is the domain controller. So I repeat that here. Server A, in this case, is my domain controller. And server B is, see that below, sorry, is the member server. So I make use of the $using variable to pass that here into this routine. So let's see if that works. Hurry up. It's a bit slow here. I have too many virtual machines running. Give it a try. Come on. I reached DC1. And what about the server one? Shouldn't work, right? Wait and see. Come on. I swear it was faster when I tested it. It works. There is no double hop problem. Sometimes we forget a bit. I start Active Directory users and computers to show that to you. Oopala, it's very slow today. Just wait a second, advanced view. This is the reason why it works, because it's a domain controller. Having a domain controller is freaking awesome. You heard that from Will Schroeder, yeah? Because he knows it all, and he trusts itself. So if he or she, it doesn't have a credential, so it queries itself. So the problem is double hop does not occur if you have set it like this. That's the reason why many of you know that you can do stuff magic with set SPN, so that you can create delegation and stuff like that. But the problem is that if you work like this, you produce security risks somehow, because a plain member server shouldn't get more rights than necessary, and it's not a domain controller. So let's take care what will happen when I change that. So now I say this is my second hop and this is my first hop. The rest is the same. So I read it, and now let's see what happens. Hope it's a little bit faster now. Here we are. It will work for the first computer and then finished. So there are multiple solutions to this problem. I do only show you a few things that are really interesting to keep that in time, and then we're done. But let's show what's the maybe the easiest solution to this problem. What I personally do like is, although this is not perfect, I simply pass the credentials to the machine. Because the second that I do that, I explicitly authenticate at the remote server, on the remote server. It's exactly the same as I would log on. So let's see if that works here, and do it like that. This is one possibility to do that. But this does not work everywhere. So we should have some more weapons. But this worked. We can do it like this. We can pass the credential object as an argument. We create parameters, and we say, I loop from one computer to another, and I provide the credentials. You have to take care of and ask yourself, is that a security risk? But you have to keep in mind that PowerShell traffic is encrypted by default. So I wouldn't mind to do this in a regular environment. It really depends on where you live, what you do, what's your company. So let's see if that works. Oops. So that works too, but what does not work? Sometimes this is not good enough. So Microsoft created a security layer, Cred SSP. Again, you have to ask yourself, will I use that? Because that is not so secure as what you have by default. But Credential SSP allows you to authenticate on the remote machines. So this is the way you do that. But I got one more thing, and maybe the last thing is the best. Let's see that. So first of all, Cred SSP is not allowed. Yeah. So enable it. Oh, something's wrong here. What is wrong here? Oh, just wait a second. I have an idea. I'm on a client. If I do not start the WinRM service, then I run into trouble. I promised to stop 2:45, right? I know that. But I really appreciate your patience. So did that again, so just a second. Now it works. The machine is not configured by default, as you can see, so I enable it to ask me, yes, I want to do that. Then you have to do a bunch of stuff. You have to check the configuration, you see that here. But primarily, if you enable it on the client, you have to enable the server side. And if you do it like that, then it should also work. What did I do wrong? 78. Ah, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes. Sorry. Again. So it works now. Come on. Come on. I don't know why it's so slow. Strange. Okay, it works. It's pretty slow. I have to check that. Maybe I changed something in the config of Hyper-V, so it's a little bit boring here, so I apologize again. But whatsoever, this should work. And the last thing that I want to give out to you is, there is one more thing, and this is pretty interesting. Instead of using this kind of magic or think about Kerber's delegation, there might be another approach which is much simpler, and this is my last example. This is this one. So the magic here is, meanwhile I explain it, I already ran it to save some time, hope it works. Yeah. So this is the basic tests. So you see here it fails, of course. So, and now let's do the session configuration. Thank you. Maybe the most elegant way to get rid of that double hop problem is to simply create your own PowerShell configuration to create a kind of custom endpoint. So, because this allows you to explicitly log onto the machine, and if you do that, you have a plain that simple way to avoid that trouble. Let's see if it works. It works. Great. So I show you this here. So, wrapping it up. Is this a boring topic? Yes, it is. It's super bad. This is the reason why I apologize for doing that on the last track on Friday, and it's great to have you here. Grab the lab files. There is more in it. For example, I create, in the lab files, you find a complete SSL configuration. So if you want to enable the secure socket layer to wrap that all in another layer of encryption, which is recommended, do it. You find the examples. Two things that I wanted to highlight. Local account token filtering is something like a hidden feature. And I don't say that without there is no irony in it. It's a feature, but it nags you if you don't know about it. And the second thing is double hop. There are so many solutions to that. Maybe delegating an Active Directory is not the best way to do that. But as you saw, it's an option. You can see that if you use a domain controller, because this machine has the right by default, and you can enable an alternate configuration with limited rights and, of course, to any server. But I wouldn't do that. Maybe this is better. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.